Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. Today you're going to get dual episodes from Bionic Dance this morning and myself this afternoon. I had meant to upload yesterday. However, PAX Prime more or less ate my entire schedule for the day, and it looked something like this. Suffice it to say, things were pushed back until today. So earlier this week, GothatFunk brought up the topic of whether or not rights exist and privileges exist, and if so, kind of what are they? And so I wanted to delve into this. So when we talk about the existence of rights, what we're really referring to here is whether or not this thing that we call rights exists independently of ourselves as human beings. And the answer to that is no. Rights do not exist independently of us. They are a construct of mankind, and therefore we give them to ourselves. We invent them and create them and modify them. I think that it first helps to disentangle two concepts, and that is the concept of rights that you have and abilities that you have. They are not the same thing, but in our society and common parlance, we use these words really very interchangeably, and I think that that leads to a lot of confusion when we start to try to really intellectually delve into the topic of rights. Speaking to Wayne's example earlier this week of the sort of tabula rasa of mankind, where it's just one person living on the planet and there's no society and rules and laws or other people, then this is where we normally hear the idea inserted, the law of the jungle, which is might makes right. And this is where we need to disentangle the concept of rights with ability. Might makes right refers to a person's ability to do something in the absence of any kind of societal construct. It is only in this blank slate of mankind where might and rights are interchangeable with one another. Because in this imaginary one-person scenario, the only person making decisions is that human, and the only human they're making decisions for is themselves. And so anything that they determine for themselves is automatically right for themselves by virtue of being what they've decided and then what they have accomplished or have the ability to do. Once any two or more people come together in some sort of a symbiotic existence, that is where the idea of might and right becomes separate and distinct from one another. What rights refer to are things that we give to ourselves as a part of a social contract with other human beings. I disagree with the assertion that our rights are some sort of arbitrary thing that we've come up with as a society. We can witness the evolution of these, starting with some of the most ancient documents like the Code of Hammurabi, and then see their evolution through the entire course and history of mankind around the world as they gain more nuance and complexity, the more that people and societies gain, more complexity. And even today, we have a hierarchy and a prioritization of our rights, and some of them that we consider to be more fundamental or inalienable than others. There is a very marked parallel between the prioritization of our rights and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, such that the more fundamental rights are to our very existence, the higher we prioritize those as basic rights. Suffice it all to say, yes, our rights exist because we have created and given rise to them. But I agree with Bionic Dance that without us and human beings, there is no such thing as rights. Moving on to the topic of privilege. This is a really convoluted topic. GothatFunk is right. I do have some pretty complex thoughts on this issue. I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can. But first I want to differentiate between some ideas because I think that the idea of privilege has been hijacked. So we have privilege, which is an advantage that exists that a person has. Then we have social justice privilege, which is an advantage that a person has that they don't deserve. And implicitly, because they don't deserve it, that it's justifiable to, in some way, shape, or form, take that advantage away from them or demand that they relinquish it. Social justice privilege only ever presents privilege in a negative light, something that you have that someone else doesn't, and therefore it is unfair and you shouldn't have it. In contrast to economic privilege, however, social privilege is far more ambiguous and really very fluid. And it's relative to the context and the situation of society. Being a man is great if you want to study the Kabbalah. Not so great if you want to get your children in a divorce custody battle. Being black is great if you are in the rap or hip hop industry or the NBA. Being black is not so great if you are in the criminal justice system. Being able to hear is great unless you happen to be the only hearing child born to deaf parents and they're going to raise you in a deaf community. Then you are the odd child out and may have socialization issues where you are awkward or different and not quite like the others. So to assert that a person has privileges by virtue of some attribute of their being, rather than having privileges that arise relative to the context that they're operating in, is really intentionally misleading. And I think that it is purposefully misleading so as to lay the groundwork for establishing why said gains of your privileges or advantages are undeserved and therefore can be justifiably denied to you or taken away and reallocated. Do privileges exist? Yes. Is it bad of us to have them? Not at all, unless you want to assert the argument that just by being born, you're automatically a social sinner in some way. Are privileges inherent according to our various attributes? No. They are a combination of the individual attributes that we possess relative to the conditions that are around us. Do we deserve our privileges? That is an entirely different question, and I think that desert of privileges has been conflated with the possession of privileges in order to purposefully muddy the waters so that the action of taking them away is vindicated. Thank you everybody for listening today. I apologize again for being late on my video. I hope that this sheds a little bit of light into my take on rights and privileges, and I look forward to hearing what is to come tomorrow. Everybody have a great weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday here at the Breakfast Club.